Hi, friends. Happy Monday. I hope your day is happy anyway. I had a good day at work, and I had a great weekend. So hopefully you're ready to do some playing again with the Botanical Textures Suite Collection from Stampin' Up. It's one of their online exclusives. You won't find it in a catalog, so you need to search when you go to the Stampin' Up website for online exclusives, and you'll see some really gorgeous product. And one of them is this Botanical Textures. It includes the Textured Notes Suite, or bundle, which includes this beautiful stamp set and the dies. But if you get the suite, then you get this really wonderful mini corrugated 3D embossing folder. We'll be using that, along with these really low profile dots in white, black, basic beige, and pecan pie, and this really beautiful ribbon that's real fun to use. And then it has two sets of paper, so both of them have 12 sheets of 12 by 12 cardstock. One is woven textures, which are these four, and you will get 3 each of them, so you'll end up with 12, but you'll have 3 pieces of each one of these. And then this is the Botanical Textures, which is black and white, and we're going to have some fun with that today as well. And if you recall, I created this scrapbook page on Friday using the Botanical Textures. So I used not only the Botanical Textures DSP, but I also used the Woven Textures DSP just to bring in a little bit of color, since these photos feel almost black and white, but obviously the skin tones and some shadows have a little bit more of the earth tones. So I just thought it was a great color combination for my grandson's spread. Hey, Linda, thanks for joining me. Okay, so today we're going to be making 3 beautiful cards. One is a note card, so just super cute, and the dies fit perfectly on the note card. And then we've got another thank you card with some 3D elements to it. And then we've got this beautiful card as well. So the theme of this suite, or of the bundle, is really a lot of thank you. And so, but you can, like this one, I took, instead of it being a little note of appreciation, I took a little note of appreciation. I took the bottom portion off, so it's just a little note. So I love that. So you can have some versatility with it as well. Okay, so let's put some of these things aside so we can get started. All right. Too many things right in front of me. Okay, so the first card that we're going to make is this cute little note card, which if you get confused, knowing what size cardstock to create cards with, the note cards, the basic white note cards, are a great way to get what you need without having to worry about whether you have the right size envelopes. So they come with envelopes and cards that have already been scored. So all you need to do is fold them in half. And they are 3.5 by 5. So they're a little smaller than an A2 card, but I think that they mail well and they look great. So just really nice, already prepared. You've already got your envelopes that match your card. So no problem there. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a piece of basic black and glue that right onto the front of the note card. Looks like I'm at the end of my glue, but I keep trying to get a little bit more, and I think it's time to throw that one away. Okay, so I have another one here ready to go. Easy to open. There we go. And the cat has another cap to play with. All right, so this will be the first layer. Now, the second layer is basic beige, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to die cut a couple of pieces from it. So I have this piece here, and then this one here, and rather than using two pieces, I'm going to use one, and I'm just going to cut them both at the same time. Okay. So these are the two that I'm going to use, and I love the Textured Notes dies because they just have these beautiful patterns around them, around the dies, and so you end up with these really beautiful details on your cards. So, okay, so let me, I'm just going to die cut this real quick off screen if you don't mind. And I'm going to cut the middle of the cardstock off. Or out. And I'm using some of that Post-it note labeling cover-up tape, and it just works really great on holding my dies. So, okay, so I've got two pieces, and then I can put the ones I'm not using back in with my dies. So you can see that they all nest together, which makes it really easy to have pieces that fit together. So in other words, you can just keep nesting different layers, and I just love that about this. So it's a really beautiful set of dies, and I think it's going to get a lot of use. Okay, so this piece will get glued on. And you can see that it just fits perfectly within the boundaries of the basic black cardstock. Okay. Now, what I'm doing next with this DSP is I'm going to show you some different versions of it. Okay. So this one I used blends, and that takes a lot of detail and time. And one of the things I found is that the DSP tends to bleed easily. So in other words, this image, I kept my marker within, and it just kind of bled out. And also it just took a lot of time. Even though this piece is about 3 inches by 4¼ inches, I believe that's the dimension. Yeah, 3 inches by 4¼ and it just took a lot of time. And I don't always like to show stuff like that. You have that option, but I wanted to try something just a little looser, and so I decided to use my blending brush. So I used 2 colors, Mossy Meadow and Pool Party, and I know that doesn't really sound like a combination that you would normally use, but I think that this shows you how beautiful the blue is in the background. So you can see that even though this was colored in the blends, I think that doing that with the blending brush works as well. So you can see how I did some of the leaves in the green, and then just tried to kind of randomly find some areas that allowed me to have a little bit of the sky color in between. But you can also just color with this little sample. You can just color everything green if you want to, and you still kind of get a really cool look. So let's get started on a full piece, and I'll show you what I mean. So I'm using the smaller blending brush, and I'm allowing it to be darker in some places, and just primarily picking up where the leaves are. So allowing the dark to be kind of at the base of where the leaves are, and then just blending around it. So you have some dark spots and some lighter spots. And I think it just still has a really pretty look to it. But then bringing the pool party in and just blending in between those, you end up with a little bit of a background that I think it's just really pretty. And they're unusual colors to put together, but I like the look of it. And you can tell me in the comments if you do too. So just a little different. And even though this looks so much more precise, I like the loose feel of this a little bit better. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue this piece on, and now I think if I had thought about it ahead of time, I would have made this piece like, I think the area within this is 4 3/8 by 2 7/8, and I think it would have fit within the textured notes die a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to use this stamp right here in the Mossy Meadow, and then we can add our little note. Now I did stamp it off. I forgot about that. So this is a lot darker than I had intended. If I was to turn it over, you would see that it was supposed to be stamped off, but it's still pretty. All right, let me clean this stamp real quick. Okay, and then I need my little note. Okay, so this is a little note of appreciation, and what I'm going to do is I am just going to stamp a little note. Now the only problem is that when you are using the clear stamps, you can tell a little bit better if you're catching any of the other words, and I'm just having to wipe it off with my fingers. That way it doesn't show up. So I want just a little note. Turned out a little bit lighter than I liked, but there are better ways of doing it without using your fingers to clean it off. Okay, and then I'm going to just quickly So I'm going to glue this onto my little piece of black. So this is a 1/2 inch by about 2 3/4 inch is what I started out with. And this piece of black is 5/8 by 3 inches, and then I'm just going to trim it so that all the borders on all four sides are the same. Okay. All right, now I have this little piece, this is just a scrap, and it was 3/4 of an inch wide, and I embossed it with this corrugated 3D embossing folder. And I'll show you a piece that we're going to emboss next, but it just gives you a little bit of extra texture on your card. And I am going to just glue this down. And then I'll add this portion here. So what I'm going to do is, because this is corrugated and you can see there's a 3D element to it, I'm going to pop this up using dimensionals. And then I'm going to use glue dots, or actually I could just use glue on this side so it adheres to the corrugated cardstock. And then I'm just going to place this in the middle approximately. And then again, I have a, oops, I know what I forgot. I forgot a little piece of ribbon. So before this dries, there we go. I'll add my little piece of ribbon, and I'm just going to tie a knot. And then to keep this in its place, I'm going to use a little glue dot behind the knot so it stays in place. And then I'm going to add my little note, and you can have it just in the middle or you can have it down below, however you want to. So I think I'm going to move this up just a little and put this down below this time. All right, so I'll stick this here, and then I'm going to add a couple of glue dots so it sticks to the cardstock. Okay, and then we are just going to do our embellishments. So these are the neutral matte dots, and I like them because they're low profile, so they don't stick up a whole lot. So you can see they're pretty low. They're not as flat as sequins, but they definitely have a smaller feel to them. And there we go. So you see that I've got two different looks. This one was done with the blends, and this one was done with the blending brushes. And I still think that you end up with a really beautiful card either way. And then for my envelope, I'm going to stamp one of the other images from the stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp it right here. So you end up with a really nice image. All right, that's the first one. Okay, Now we'll go to the second card. All right, so this card is just full of textures. And for this one, I used the Botanical Textures, or sorry, the woven texture cardstock, and I used some pieces, overlapped them, made them a little wonky, and then I layered with Mossy Meadow, stamped the image with Mossy Meadow, and then a little bit of Basic Beige. And you can see the Basic Beige kind of stamps a little green. And honestly, I like it because I think it goes so well with the Mossy Meadow. But if you look at this card from the side, you can see that I've really made this into a very texturous card because I've got the background that is the corrugated embossing folder. And then I crinkled the cardstock. So you've got just a real cool look, like it's just a woven mat that's been crumpled. And then you've got the beautiful dies that are creating all these textures on your cardstock. Okay, so let's get started creating this card. All right, so this is an A2 card size. And these are the two dies that I'm going to be using. So this one, I am going to just wad it up into the smallest ball I can make. And I know this looks really distressful, but it's a way of distressing the cardstock. And I'm just making sure that I don't tear anything because I don't necessarily want torn edges, though you could, distress it even more because I still want it to look like a woven mat, not necessarily paper. So you can see that once I've crinkled it up, it's got a lot of texture to it. Okay, so this is the other side of this cardstock. And so I'm just going to layer these two on the card. But first, I'm going to emboss with the embossing folder using this mini corrugated 3D embossing folder. So a way to make sure that your card is, the corrugated element is straight, is you can line up your paper with this line that they have on the front of your embossing folder. And then you just hold it tight, and then you're going to put it through your Stamp and Cut and Emboss machine using the plate 1 and the plate 4. Okay, so these are these layers. And then next I need, this is my envelope. So I need to get my card ready. And I'm going to glue this corrugated piece down. So rather than try to get it all over the corrugated area, I should probably put a little bit more glue. And then I can just lay this piece. Now this is cut to 4 1/8 and 5 3/8. But as you can see, the corrugated causes it to be shorter. So you might want to try 5 1/2 instead of 5 3/8. And you might get it so that it actually goes down a little bit further. So just something to note. And then I'm going to glue this down. And I'm just going to touch on the pieces that are probably going to touch because this is wrinkled pretty seriously. But I like that. I like it that it's wrinkled. All right. So we'll just let that sit for a second so it stays down. Now this, because this is a wrinkled surface, I'm going to pop this up using Stampin' Dimensionals, okay? So there's a few places that I can put them. One is here, and that's by just kind of placing this. One is down here. And then one is right here in the corner. And then I can place one right there. You can kind of see how I strategically put the dimensionals so that it pops up. And then I'll just place one in the middle to kind of give it some support. And then I'm going to place this one, very wonky. All right, so now this one I'm going to stamp on, and then I'll layer it on this piece here. So I want a couple of different things. So I'm going to use Basic Beige and Mossy Meadow again. And I'm also going to be stamping my sentiment, okay? So the first thing I want is this, and I am trying to recall if I stamp that off or not. But let's go ahead and just stamp it full color, and it'll fade a little bit. And then I've got a couple of things that have some texture to them that I'm going to stamp in Basic Beige, but let me stamp my sentiment first. Okay. All right, the Basic Beige, even though the cover makes it look like it's beige, it actually has more of a green tint to it. Okay, so I am going to stamp this. You can see this stamp here through the thank you. And then I'm going to stamp this base basket weave to the left of my foliage. And it just adds a little bit more extra, I don't know, it's pretty. Okay, so now I am going to stamp or die cut these out. So this piece here, it fits this really beautiful die. So this is 3 inches by 4.5, and it works perfectly. And then for the sentiment, so the die is about 2 3/4 by 1 1/4. So I'm using a piece that's like 3.5 by 1.5. I'm going to line this up so it's where I want it to be. And then I'm placing that Post-it note over it so it stays in place. Okay. Just love these dies. They're very, very beautiful. Okay. So you can see it just has such beautiful detail to it. Just really, really beautiful. Okay. I can put these dies away. Oh, and I have one more card that I made that we're not using today, but you can see I'm just using up my scraps, and I love how I'm using a little bit of the pecan pie to get some color behind, and I did my little note in pecan pie and also my envelope cover, and then just added a little piece of ribbon. So again, it's got the beautiful dies, and then once I had placed the pieces on a piece of basic white, then I die cut it out using the largest of the dies, this one here, and then placed a piece of pecan pie under it on an A2 card. So you can see that just really pretty. Just another idea, and I'll post it on my blog so you have that one as well. Okay, so this piece of cardstock is just a little bit larger than what my card is. So this was 2 7/8 by 4 3/8 in Mossy Meadow. If one of my team could see me now, she'd be scolding me. Never supposed to glue the piece that is going on. You're supposed to glue the piece that is the one that is going on. So, okay. So now I am going to glue this down, and I've got to be careful because there's pieces that do not necessarily stay on. So I kind of need to just find a rectangle on my piece of cardstock. And then I'm placing it in the middle, and it's going to be straight with the edges of my card, like so. Okay. And then I'm going to pop this piece up. And then I'm letting all the different textures show. And then we'll add some of the little dots. Okay, little dots, where are you? Here they are. So this time I'm going to use some of the pecan pie and the white, and this time I put 5. So I think it's a beautiful card. Just has some really fun elements, and look at all that 3D. So it'll be fun having it in the envelope. Okay, so I'm using a piece that is 2 1/4 by 6 inches long, and I'm going to glue it onto my flap. And you've been watching me for a while. You've seen me do this. Now I'm pretty careful about how much glue I put on my envelope flap. I usually just put like a tiny little stream of glue. I don't want a ton because it tends to creep out. It's just so you can see what I'm doing here. You can see it's just a little bead because I just don't want it squishing out all over the place. And then I line it up with a line at the top of the envelope. And then I just trim around. And it makes a really beautiful way to coordinate your gorgeous card with your envelope. So when I first started stamping, Shelley was in charge of the company. She was the CEO, and now her daughter Sarah is. And Shelley's saying was never a naked envelope. So I do try to never have a naked envelope. So there we go. Second card. All right. Now Where's my first card? That's not, oh, here it is. Okay. All right, so now the third one, which is a really beautiful variation of what I was doing with a blending brush and the DSP. So this one, I'm using the Pretty Peacock and Pool Party to color my leaves. Because this DSP has a background of black, it allowed me to make my leaves really pop. So, and then I just used some of the Pretty Peacock, and you can see this is the Pool Party here. But you can choose to just use Pretty Peacock, but I like the variation of color. Okay. All right, so for this card, it is again an A2 card. All right, and we are using a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch piece of basic black to cover the entire front. Okay. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, because I always upload my videos to YouTube, you can always pause it and start it if you're putting it together as I'm making this. Okay. And then over that is going to be a piece of the Pretty Peacock. So typically these are 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. However, I had originally made this Pretty Peacock too big. So when I was cutting it down for this card, it had a really, really narrow edge. So don't know if you can see this or not, but let me bring it up. So it ends up being a really narrow edge. So I'm doing that again just because I kind of like that look. But before I glue this down, we're going to be doing some coloring on this. So let me find my little scrap piece. Okay. So this is where you can kind of choose. So I want all my leaves to be Pretty Peacock. And then I've got these little things, which I'm not sure if it's fern or something. It kind of looks like lady's mantle. I don't remember the name of the fern, but it's a real tender looking fern. So I am making these nice and vibrant, the big leaves. And it doesn't really matter where you go with it because the background is black for the most part. Maybe a dark gray. Okay, so you can see all the leaves are in the Pretty Peacock. Okay, so now I'm going to make these littler things in the Pool Party. It's a little bit of a different color. It's got more green. Now, obviously in the middle here, it's not going to be seen, but down here at the edge, it'll have a little different look. So you can see the two different colors. All right, and then before I put that away, I have a couple of scraps in here, and one is narrower than the other. One is going to be, oh, yes, my piece with just the, okay. So this one gets Pool Party. And I've got one at full strength, and I'm going to do it a little bit higher. Need to do the right one. And then I'm just going to stamp off a couple of them up above. Isn't that pretty? Okay. Now I'm going to do an extra one in black, and this is going to be fussy cut out. And then for my envelope, before I put everything away, pretty peacock. What did I do with my stamp? There it is. Okay. So here is my envelope. You can see where I stamped it once dark here in the corner, and then just a couple more times stamping it off. So pretty. Just really, really elegant. Okay. And then I'm going to need that again for my sentiment. Okay. So I've got some pieces here, and I've already done the corrugated piece. And what I did is I had a piece that was 5.5 inches long, and I decided I wanted it to be a lot smaller because I wanted to do a fussy cut piece just to overlap. Okay, so I'm going to need to die cut this piece, and I'll be using this die, and so you can see the pretty detail. So I'm just going to die cut that out real quick, and that will layer with this piece here. And again, I'll put all the measurements for these. You can see that it just nests just inside on my blog. And before I do that, I might as well just die cut this at the same time. Okay, so this is, I love the font of this stamp set. And this is "You Are Seriously the Best." Such a sweet sentiment. And then I'm going to use this die, and I need to hold this one in place. So you can see this is in black. You can't see the die as well, but you can see around the edge. It's just got kind of a pretty color, or pretty pattern. Okay. Okay. Now, let me just glue this on, because this goes directly onto like I said, it has a really tiny edge, but it just kind of has a little tiny pop of color. Hope you can see that. Okay. And then these two nest together, and this ends up being like 2 1/4 by 3 3/4. And so the piece that's underneath it is going to be 1 7/8 by 3 3/8. Okay, and then I'm going to use a little bit of ribbon to tie around it. And probably it's like 8 to 10 inches, but I'm going to need to cut a little bit off when I'm done. And I'm going to tie this one off to the side. Okay. Let's pull this down a little bit. And that way I have enough room for my sentiment up above it. And I do want this to kind of stay below, so let me use a little glue dot. And I find that if you put the glue dot under your knot, it stays where you want it and it keeps the shape that you want. Okay, so I'm going to pop this up. And I'm at the tail end of my dimensionals on this, which is okay because I've got another one already behind it. There we go. This is one of those that I probably should have used my black dimensionals. I've had them for years and I hardly ever remember to use them. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the middle of my card. And then now I'm going to stack my sentiment with the corrugated. And so it's going to be a little interesting. I'm going to need a dimensional here. Actually, I'm going to need 2 because this pops up and then there's cardstock on top of it. So I'm putting 2 dimensionals, one right over the other, so that this lays flat. And I'm putting it as close to my little bow as possible. I forgot to put some glue down for this other part. And then this part, I'm just going to glue a little bit right here where it overlaps. And then I'm going to be stuffing a little piece of fussy cut image underneath there. Okay. So when I fussy cut, I let my paper, my left hand, do all the wiggling around so that I don't end up with a wrist or a hand that's tired. And I don't get real fussy about it. Some people prefer to have nothing, no white showing, but with something this dainty, you really need to just be gracious with yourself. But you can see that you get really nice rounded corners, rounded edges, unless you get carried away. It's kind of mesmerizing, very relaxing. And I'm done. So now I can add this, and I'm going to need another 2 dimensionals here to prop it up. And then I just want a little dimensional under some of the leaves. And then I need a little blue dot underneath there. So I'm going to grab one with my tweezers and then just stick it underneath, and that way it all stays down. Okay, so now I'm going to use a mix of black and white. So I'll use a couple of little black ones here, and then I can use the white ones where they're going to show up on the DSP. Isn't that pretty? Now we've got 3 beautiful cards. All right. Thank you for joining me and for hanging out for so long. I know this one took a little bit longer, but hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did. And now you've got these beautiful thank you notes or notes of appreciation. So about 15 minutes or 20 minutes per card, don't you think? All right. Well, if you're watching this later on YouTube, I'm Angela with Wild Violets Art. Please like and subscribe and share with a friend. And if you have the time, you can put a little love on my Facebook as well. So thank you so much, and I'll see you on Friday. Oops, I am not going to be here on Friday. We have a birthday. Nope, I will be here on Friday, so I'll see you then.